Dear listeners, a new day and a new story to discuss. Today, I'm going to tell you a story that interests me. Listen and write down what you think about this situation. I'm interested in your opinions. It's about the love of my life, Eliza, and the shadow that loomed over our marriage. Buckle up, because this is a tale of love, trust, and betrayal. 14 years. That's how long Eliza and I have been married. I remember the first time I saw her. Her laugh was the kind that could light up a room, and her eyes, oh, they sparkled like the stars. I was smitten. Our wedding day was something out of a fairy tale. I thought we had it all. But, you see, there was always this one thing, her ex, Jake. He was a part of her past that just wouldn't stay there. I tried to be the understanding husband. They're just friends, I would tell myself. But deep down, it gnawed at me. Harrison, you've got to trust me, Eliza would say whenever I brought up Jake. There's nothing between us. We're just old friends. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was this one morning, 8 years ago, that changed everything. I woke up to find Eliza's side of the bed empty. I figured she'd gone for an early jog, but when I went downstairs, there she was, phone in hand, a guilty look plastered on her face. Who were you texting? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She jumped, her phone slipping from her hand. Oh, it's just Jake. He sent me a funny meme. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who snoops around, but the doubt was eating me up inside. One day, while she was in the shower, I did the unthinkable. I looked through her phone, and there it was, a Snapchat conversation that was anything but innocent. Revealing photos, flirty messages. My heart sank. Eliza, we need to talk, I said later that day, my voice barely above a whisper. She sat down, her eyes wide with worry. What's wrong, Harrison? I showed her the messages. This isn't just friendship, Eliza. The room was heavy with silence. She looked down, tears brimming in her eyes. I'm sorry, Harrison. It was a stupid mistake. It won't happen again, I promise. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I asked her to end her friendship with Jake for the sake of our marriage. She agreed, but the trust, it was like a glass once shattered. You can try to piece it back together, but it's never quite the same. Fast forward to a few months later. Eliza was invited to a friend's wedding out of town. I couldn't go because of work, and we had pets to take care of. I remember kissing her goodbye, watching her drive off, feeling this unease in the pit of my stomach. Call me when you get there, I said, forcing a smile. I will, love. Don't worry, it's just a boring wedding, she replied, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. She called that evening, telling me about the ceremony, the decorations, the people she met. But she never mentioned Jake. Later, a friend posted pictures from the wedding. And there she was, in one of the photos, laughing, sitting next to Jake. My heart raced, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. I confronted her when she returned. Why didn't you tell me Jake was there? I asked, trying to keep the anger out of my voice. Eliza was defensive. It was nothing, Harrison. He just happened to be there. We barely talked. But something didn't add up. I reached out to a friend who was at the wedding. Hey, did you see Eliza and Jake together at the wedding? I asked, my voice trembling. The friend hesitated. Well, yeah, they seem pretty chummy. Spent a lot of time together, actually. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but I didn't want to see the full picture. I wanted to trust Eliza, but the lies, the secrets, they were piling up. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, the ground crumbling beneath my feet. And that's where I'm at now, folks. In a marriage clouded by doubts and secrets. A heart torn between love and betrayal. Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Welcome back, folks. I'm Harrison, and this is where my story takes a turn, a dive into the depths of doubt and confusion. This chapter is about a wedding, not ours, but one that might as well have been a scene from a thriller in my life with Eliza. The day Eliza left for that wedding, there was a knot in my stomach, a premonition of sorts. Call me when you get there, I had said, masking my anxiety with a forced smile. I will, Harrison, don't worry. It's just an old friend's wedding, Eliza reassured me, her voice a melody that I had fallen in love with. But that day, it sounded like a tune out of key. She called that evening, her voice bubbly with the excitement of the event. It's beautiful here, Harrison. The bride looks like a princess, she exclaimed. That's great, honey. Who all are there from your side? I inquired, trying to sound casual. Oh, just some old college friends. You know, the usual gang, she replied, skimming over the details. Did Jake show up? I couldn't help but ask, my voice slightly trembling. There was a brief pause. Jake? No, I haven't seen him. Why would you think he's here? Her tone was a mix of surprise and something else I couldn't quite place. The call ended with usual pleasantries, but my mind was racing. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself I was just being paranoid. The next day, a mutual friend, let's call him Mark, posted photos from the wedding on social media. There it was, a picture that hit me like a ton of bricks, Eliza and Jake, sitting together, laughing, lost in a moment. I confronted her about it when she returned. Eliza, why didn't you tell me Jake was at the wedding? I saw the photos, I said, my voice a mix of anger and hurt. She seemed flustered, her face a canvas of emotions. Harrison, it was nothing. He just happened to be there. We barely spoke, she stammered. I wanted to believe her, but the image of them together haunted me. I reached out to Mark. Hey Mark, at the wedding, did you see Eliza with Jake much? I asked, hoping for some clarity. Mark's voice was hesitant. Yeah, they were together a lot. Seemed really close, man. I thought you knew. My world felt like it was spinning. I confronted Eliza again. People are saying you and Jake were together the whole night. Why did you lie to me? I demanded, my voice rising. Harrison, please. It's not what you think. We were just catching up, she pleaded, her eyes welling up with tears. But the seed of doubt had been sown. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was amiss. Was I being paranoid? Was my trust misplaced? The question swirled in my head like a storm. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The woman I loved, the woman I had built a life with, was she a stranger? The wedding, a simple social event, had turned into a pivotal moment in our lives, a crack in the foundation of our marriage. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, love, betrayal, confusion. And this, my friends, is just the beginning. The story of Eliza and me, a tale of love tested by time and temptation, continues. Stay tuned for what happens next in this saga of a troubled marriage. Hey again, everyone. It's Harrison here, continuing the saga of my marriage with Eliza. After that wedding incident, our story didn't just pause. It spiraled into a whirlwind of doubt and suspicion that spanned years. In the aftermath of the wedding, our home became a silent battleground. I tried to bury my suspicions, to give Eliza the benefit of the doubt, but the seeds of mistrust had taken root deep within me. It's funny how doubt can turn even the simplest moments into a trial. Eliza, who were you texting so late? I'd ask, trying to sound nonchalant as we lay in bed, the glow from her phone casting shadows on the wall. Just replying to a message from work, she'd answer without looking up. But I could never shake the feeling that there was more to it. Time passed, but the memory of that wedding and the image of Eliza with Jake lingered like a stubborn fog. I noticed changes in her behavior. She was more guarded, her phone always close at hand. We were living under the same roof, but it felt like miles lay between us. One evening, I decided to confront her. Eliza, we need to talk about us. About everything, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of unspoken words. She sighed, setting her phone aside. What's there to talk about, Harrison? It's always the same thing with you. Jake this, Jake that, she replied, her tone a mix of frustration and weariness. But it's not just about Jake, I insisted. It's about us, about trust. Can't you see it's tearing us apart? Eliza looked at me, her eyes searching mine. Harrison, I love you. But you need to let go of these doubts. They're consuming you, consuming us. I wanted to believe her, to wipe the slate clean, but doubt is a persistent enemy. It clings to you, whispering in your ear at the slightest provocation. Days turned into months, and months into years. We were like actors in a play, going through the motions of a normal life. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, we celebrated them all, but the joy was tainted by an undercurrent of uncertainty. It all came to a head about 7 years later. I remember the day clearly. It was a chilly autumn evening, and we were sitting in our living room, a fire crackling in the hearth. Eliza, there's something I need to ask you, I began, my voice a mere whisper. She turned to face me, her expression guarded. What is it now, Harrison? Do you still talk to Jake? The question hung in the air like a thick fog. Eliza's face hardened. Yes, I talk to him. He's my friend, Harrison. I've told you 1,000 times. But why? After everything? I pressed, my heart pounding in my chest. Because I can have friends, Harrison. Because I'm not doing anything wrong, she shot back, her voice rising. That night, we went to bed with walls between us higher than ever. Eliza was right, she could have friends. But the shadow of doubt, once cast, is not easily dispelled. Our marriage had become a labyrinth of unspoken accusations and silent defenses. And then, just a few days ago, something shifted. Eliza casually mentioned a rumor, something about her and Jake at that wedding years ago. It was like a bomb had gone off in my mind. A rumor? What rumor? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then said, "It's nothing, Harrison. Just silly gossip." But that silly gossip reignited the smoldering embers of doubt into a blazing inferno. Why now? Why bring it up after all these years? Folks, this is where I find myself now, in a marriage clouded by years of doubt, a relationship hanging by a thread over an abyss of mistrust. What happens next in this tale of love and suspicion? Stay tuned, because this story is far from over. Ladies and gentlemen, Harrison here again. Now, let's turn the page to another chapter of my life, one filled with excitement and yet overshadowed by betrayal. This part of the story involves Mia, my girlfriend at the time, and a convention that was supposed to be a fun getaway but turned into something entirely different. We had been dating for about 8 months, and things were going great, or so I thought. Mia was vibrant, full of life, and her energy was infectious. We planned this trip to a big convention together. It was supposed to be our adventure, a memory to cherish. But then she met Daniel. A week before the convention, Mia came home bubbling with excitement. "Harrison, guess what? I met this guy, Daniel, at the coffee shop today. He's giving us free tickets to the convention." I raised an eyebrow. "Free tickets? That's cool, but who is this guy?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, just some guy who's into the same stuff as us. It's no big deal." Fast forward to the convention day. Mia was like a kid in a candy store, her eyes shining with excitement. But as soon as we got there, she darted off to find Daniel. "Harrison, come meet Daniel," she called over her shoulder. I followed, feeling a knot form in my stomach. There he was, Mr. Free Tickets, smiling at Mia like she was the only person in the room. I extended my hand. "Nice to meet you. I'm Harrison." "Daniel," he said, giving me a once-over. "Mia's told me so much about you." The day went by in a blur. Mia and Daniel were inseparable, laughing, sharing inside jokes, and to my growing discomfort, getting a bit too close for comfort. I pulled Mia aside. "Hey, can we talk?" She looked surprised. "Sure. What's up?" I took a deep breath. "I'm not comfortable with how you're acting around Daniel. It feels like you're crossing some boundaries." Mia's face fell. "Harrison, you're overreacting. He's just a friend." But I couldn't shake the feeling. Throughout the day, I watched as she whispered in Daniel's ear, laughed at his jokes, and at one point, even brushed off my hand when I tried to hold hers. That evening, back at our hotel, the tension was palpable. "Mia, I don't understand what's happening here. This is supposed to be our trip, but you've spent the entire day with Daniel. It's like I don't even exist," I said, my voice strained with emotion. She sighed, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Harrison, I told you, he's just a friend. You're making a big deal out of nothing." I wanted to believe her, but the evidence was right in front of my eyes. The next morning, I woke up to find Mia texting someone. I pretended to be asleep but peeked over her shoulder. It was Daniel. My heart sank as I read the words. "I feel so stressed and scared." I confronted her. "Why are you texting Daniel about our issues?" She turned away, her voice trembling. I just needed someone to talk to." It was like a punch to the gut. I felt betrayed, alone, and utterly confused. That day at the convention, Mia again gravitated towards Daniel, and I was left to wander the halls, a ghost in my own relationship. As the convention drew to a close, Mia dropped a bombshell. "I'm going out for drinks with Daniel. You can come if you want." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're choosing him over us," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Mia didn't seem to understand the gravity of her actions. "It's not like that, Harrison. You're just being paranoid." That night, I made a decision. I packed my bags and left for home without her. My heart was heavy, my mind in turmoil. The trust we had built over months shattered in just a few days. And there I was, driving away from what was supposed to be a memorable trip, feeling more alone than ever. The road stretched out before me, each mile a reminder of the betrayal and the pain. So that's where we are in the story, folks. A convention turned betrayal, a relationship hanging by a thread. What happens next? Well, you'll have to stay tuned for that. This tale of love, trust, and betrayal is far from over. Hey there, folks, it's Harrison back again. After the convention fiasco, you'd think things couldn't get more complicated, right? Well, hold on to your seats, because this chapter, The Breaking Point, takes us down an even rockier path with Mia. The drive back home was long and silent, a stark contrast to the excitement that had preceded the convention. I kept replaying the events in my head, Mia's laughter with Daniel, the coldness in her eyes when she looked at me. It felt like a bad dream, but the painful twist in my gut reminded me it was all too real. When I got home, the house felt empty, echoes of our happier times haunting every corner. I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. Mia's betrayal wasn't just a stab in the back. It was a slow, agonizing twist of the knife. Days passed with no word from Mia. I was a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. Then, one evening, my phone lit up with her name. I hesitated but eventually answered. "Harrison, where are you? Why did you leave me there?" Mia's voice was a mix of anger and confusion. "Mia, I couldn't stay. Not after what happened. You chose him over us," I replied, my voice steady but my hands trembling. There was a pause, and then she said, "Harrison, I didn't choose anyone over you. You're overreacting. He's just a friend, nothing more." I sighed, feeling a wave of frustration wash over me. "Mia, it's not just about him. It's about us, about what we are to each other. And right now, I don't even know what that is." The conversation went in circles, Mia insisting it was all a misunderstanding, and me trying to make her see how her actions had hurt me. It felt like talking to a wall. Finally, I had to lay it out plainly. "Mia, this isn't working. What happened at the convention? It was the last straw." Mia's voice cracked. "Harrison, please, don't do this. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't realize how it was affecting you. We can work this out." But the trust was broken, the connection severed. It was like trying to unring a bell. "I don't think we can, Mia. I can't be in a relationship where I constantly feel second best." We ended the call, and I sat there, staring at the phone, feeling a mix of relief and profound sadness. It was over, a relationship I had invested so much in, gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. I kept thinking about Mia, about us, about what could have been. It's funny how the heart holds on to hope, even when the mind knows it's time to let go. The next few days were a blur. I went through the motions, work, eat, sleep, but everything felt hollow. The house felt even emptier, the silence louder. Mia's things were still there, a painful reminder of what we had lost. One evening, as I was going through some of her things, deciding what to do with them, my phone rang again. It was Mia. "Harrison, can we talk? Please, I need to explain." I hesitated, a part of me wanting to just hang up, but another part needing closure. "Okay, Mia, talk." What followed was a flood of apologies, explanations, and pleas for another chance. Mia was desperate, saying she'd do anything to make it right. But some things, once broken, can't be fixed. "Mia, I appreciate you trying to explain, but it's too late. I can't put myself through this again. I need to move on, and you should too," I said, my voice calm but firm. We hung up, and I sat there, feeling the finality of it all. It was the end of a chapter that had brought both joy and pain. And there you have it, folks. The breaking point, a chapter of love, betrayal, and tough decisions. What comes next? Well, that's a story for another time. Stay tuned. After the tumultuous end with Mia, I found myself in a void, surrounded by the echoes of a love that once was. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt like a silent museum of our past. Her things, still scattered around, were constant reminders of the heartache. I knew I needed to clear them out, but each item felt like a piece of a puzzle I was no longer able to complete. I started with the small things, her books on the coffee table, the mug she loved using every morning, her hairbrush that still had strands of her hair. It was like I was erasing her from my life, one item at a time. But with each piece that left the house, I felt a bit lighter, like I was slowly emerging from under the weight of our broken relationship. Then came the day when I had to tackle the big stuff, the clothes in the closet, the pictures on the wall, the gifts we had exchanged over the months. I remember picking up a framed photo of us at the beach, smiling without a care in the world. It felt like a lifetime ago. As I was taking down the pictures, my phone rang. It was Mia. "Harrison, can we meet? I need to get my things, and I need to see you." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to refuse, to avoid reopening wounds that were just starting to heal. But I knew this was a step I had to take for both of us to move on. "Okay, Mia, come over tomorrow." The next day was surreal. Mia walked into the house, and it was like a ghost from my past had come to life. She looked around, her eyes lingering on the empty spaces where her things used to be. "Harrison, This feels so final, she said, her voice a whisper. It is final, Mia. It's time for both of us to move forward, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We went through the motions, packing her remaining belongings into boxes. Each item held a memory, a shared moment in our now-ended story. There were times when our eyes met, and for a second, it felt like we could turn back time. But then reality would set back in, and we'd go back to packing. After everything was packed, Mia stood at the door, her hand on the doorknob. She turned to me, tears in her eyes. Harrison, I'm so sorry for everything. I wish things could have been different. I nodded, my own emotions threatening to surface. I wish that too, Mia. But we have to accept things as they are. Take care of yourself. And with that, she left. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. The chapter with Mia was officially closed, but the story of my life was still being written. The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into anything that would keep my mind off the emptiness. I started going to the gym, picked up my old guitar, and even tried my hand at painting. It was like I was rediscovering myself, finding pieces of Harrison that had been lost in the tangle of my relationships. Friends and family were my anchors during this time. They were there with words of encouragement, shoulders to lean on, and reminders that life goes on. I remember one evening, sitting with my best friend, Mark, at a bar. Harrison, you're doing okay, man. Better than okay, actually, Mark said, raising his glass. I smiled, raising my own. Yeah, I guess I am. It's been a rough ride, but I'm still here. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something. Life is a series of chapters, some good, some bad. But each one is a step forward, a lesson learned. My story with Eliza and Mia was over, but my story, Harrison's story, was still being written. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we are in this tale of love, loss, and moving on. It's not the end, just a new beginning. What the future holds, I don't know, but I'm ready to find out. Stay tuned, because this journey is far from over.